Can you imagine the word that this picture is supposed to invoke? Have you ever heard somebody in the baseball vernacular say he crushed that? That's what we want to do. We want to set ourselves up to crush our listing presentation. And when we start, it's powerful to get to know what the seller is most important to them, right? So remember the sequence when we go through any meeting with a prospective listing. If you go on my YouTube channel, there's a listing preparation video where I go through everything from, when you pull up in your car, you should turn your car radio off. That way, when you get out of the presentation and you get back in your car, it's not blaring at you talk radio, it's silent, and you can kind of debrief. How did that go? What did I say? What did they say to what I said? And should I have said it differently? All of that sort of triage happens, right? But after you turn your radio off, you get out of your car, you ring the doorbell, and they open the door and you say, "Are you ready to get your home sold?" And we say that because sellers will be very indicative in where their head's at, the way they answer that question, right? A lot of them will be sort of maybe put off or put on their heels because they're not expecting you to say that. But then they'll respond with, "Well, it depends what you're going to charge me, or it depends what you're going to tell me what it's going to sell for."
Oh, then you're going to get their objection right up front.
Exactly. Right.
Ooh, snap.
So I literally hold out my hand. "Hi, are you ready to get your home sold?" And I smile and they look at me like, I guess, right? If they say, "I guess."
Shows you mean business. Yeah, too.
Yeah, exactly. So once I get in the door, I say, "Do you mind giving me a tour of your lovely home?" And I'll walk over to their kitchen table and I'll set my laptop bag down next to a chair that I've identified as being a good position. And I'm very aware of, is this a husband and wife? Can I tell where they sit? And I never want to sit next to the wife because you could offend some husbands and blah, 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 right? So be thoughtful of that. Sometimes when you have laptop issues, you set your bag down near an outlet, right? But be planful and then set it down and say, "Would you mind giving me a tour of your lovely home?" The whole point of the tour is not only to assess the condition of the home, but it's also to assess their motivation and bond and build rapport, right? So get good at, and I'm sure most of you are already good at this, but get good at looking at things in their house that you have a connection to. Like, "Oh my God, is this photo from Cabo? I love Cabo." Or, "Oh, you're a golfer. I love golf. I'm terrible at it, but I love it." Or, whatever, right? Like, look for clues. If they have children in photos where they're playing sports, or if they have a daughter who is in a tutu, "Oh, your daughter does ballet," whatever, right? Bond, build rapport. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, they know you. This tour is going to get them to like you. And then when you present, then they're going to trust you, right? But you can't miss the opportunity to bond and build rapport while they're giving you that tour. Then when you get back to the kitchen table, you're going to pull out a notepad or your phone to take notes, but you're going to say, "Hey, I'd like to start by asking you a few questions." And they go, "Okay, what are your top 3 goals for this transaction?" That's it. Straightforward, right? What are your top 3 goals? And what they'll say is, "Well, I want to manage the timing. Like, I need to make sure that we don't have to move sooner than June 1st or whatever," right? A lot of people are going to say, "I just want the most amount of money," or whatever, right? Like, great. Usually, in fact, the very first slide in my listing presentation is, "Want to sell your house for the most money in the least time with the least amount of hassle?" One of those 3 or all of those 3 are going to be in their list of goals. But now I know what's important to them, and I can emphasize that in my dialogues, right? In my presentation. And sometimes people have a hard time thinking of 3. And you can coach them. It's meant to be conversational, right? Sometimes they'll say, what do you mean? And I'll say, oh, like a lot, when I ask this question, a lot of people say, I just want the most amount of money. And I'll kind of take that one off the table right away, because that is a common, at least one of the goals, right? Christine, I'm happy to answer questions along the way if it's relevant to this.
Oh, okay. Okay. Later on.
Okay. You can leave it up so I don't forget you. So get their top 3 goals. Go, great, got it. You're taking notes on your yellow pad, or I use Evernote. If you guys have the note-taking app, you can take it into that. But just make sure they see you writing down their answers. Question number 2, what are your top 3 to-dos? And I really like this question because it helps me understand timing. Because they'll say, well, my top 3 to-dos are to get the new roof on, or to fix whatever, or paint whatever, right? Or they'll say, one of them is, I need Johnny to graduate from high school. And then that'll help facilitate a conversation about, okay, maybe we should wait to put it on the market. Maybe we should put it on right away and ask for delayed possession, whatever, right? But it spurs that conversation. But I'm not having that conversation now. I'm just taking notes. I'm taking down their to-dos, right? And then the third question is, what do you want or expect from the real estate community? And you guys on this call are probably wondering, what the hell does that mean, right? Imagine a consumer. So this one, I always follow it with a little extra dialogue. But there's a purpose for this question, right? So I say, okay, now can you tell me what are the top 3 things that you want from the real estate community? And they look at you like, what do you mean? And they go, usually when I ask this question, people share with me some bad experiences that they've had, right? Because their brain is going to think you're the real estate community that you're referring to. What I'm actually referring to is the real estate community at large. So there is a right and wrong answer for this. The right answer is, bring me a really fat offer. That's what I want the real estate community to do, right? But it allows me, because they don't immediately understand the question, it allows me to guide them to bad experiences, which I want to know, because I can get busy, and if I'm falling down on making my weekly calls and they say, I expect the agent to communicate with me, I'm not falling down on them. I'm going to make damn sure I'm setting alarms in my calendar to do what I need to do, right? So sometimes they'll say, I just expect them to not let my cat out or whatever. And I can chime in with, okay, would you feel better if I put feature cards up that said, don't let the cat out? And they go, oh yeah, the last agent didn't do that. Right? So it gives us a chance to bond and build rapport over negative experiences, if they've had any. A lot of times when I say, usually at this point, people are, sharing maybe some bad experiences. They go, oh, no, we don't really have that. And I'll say, okay, so then what you want is for them to bring a nice, clean, high offer, right? And they laugh and they go, yeah. That's the 3 questions. That's it. And it's just to flush out information that allows me to be more effective in my presentation, right? Because now I'm ready and I can tailor how I speak as I go through my slide deck to address and draw attention to, this is how we communicate and make sure that you get updates every week. This is how we make sure the cat doesn't get out or whatever, right? Let me stop sharing my screen so we can see each other. The segue after I've asked those 3 questions is simply, what I'd like to do now is show you my marketing system. Is that okay? And they go, yeah. And if you've been following along in this weekly trainings, you saw on a previous video where I open my listing presentation and then I close my laptop so it goes to sleep, so that when I open it with them, that's the first and only thing on my screen, right? And then I actually, in the video, you'll learn how to go full screen mode on a PDF. Does anyone know how to do that? Here's a little tip for you, because this, when you're, meeting somebody, you're trying to impress them, right? I mean, you want them to be impressed with your character, your competence, everything. In less than 5/10 of a second, I can drive the impression in my prospect that I'm a tech guru. And all I do is hit Control L, and it takes a PDF and launches full screen mode. And they don't say anything. They're just like, oh, how do you do that? He must know computers better than I do. Does that make sense? If I weren't on my old computer, I would show you what I mean, but let me see if I can access it. Actually, I can probably, you're going to see my old company before I joined EXP, since this computer is old. It'll open. Come on.
While you're opening it, what did you say? You can make that impression. What was the verbiage you used?
On the technology part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to drive a perception in them that I'm tech savvy. And you don't have to be tech savvy to do that, right? But in this day and age, like imagine you're meeting with an octogenarian or some elderly couple, and you in half a second launch full screen mode on your slide deck. They're going to be like, wow, it's like voodoo, right? So let me show you what I mean. I'll just share this real fast. So Hometown Advisor Real Estate was my company. But geez, I gotta sign into this. I want my computer back. I'm so much more efficient. Isn't it funny how your computer's like, it's like a coat, It fits really well or it doesn't fit at all.
You got to get in rapport with your computer.
It's exactly what it is. And the irony is I had wonderful rapport with this computer back.
And get back into it. Everything's energy, including your computer.
This computer, it made me giggle when I pulled it out of the closet, because I don't throw anything away because I'm paranoid that people will steal my stuff, like my personal info. But it has on the back of it, it has a big EXP sticker so that when I open my laptop, it shows the logo. Sign out. I don't want to sign out. All right, well, I'll have to, that's probably the one that's being repaired. So this is a PDF. And you want to just look at full screen mode for a PowerPoint if that's what your slide deck is in. But right now it's not in full screen mode. Let's see. And Control L, now it's in full screen mode. And if I do that without saying anything, I just go bang, bang, and then I'm on my way, presenting, they're going to think to themselves, oh, that was kind of cool. How do you do that? But they're also going to think, he's pretty good with computers. And you have to be in this day and age, right? Is that a fair statement? We need to be good at the internet. We need to be good at social media. And now we need to be good at AI. I mean, it's just a little subtle way to demonstrate some tech savviness. All right, let's open it up to questions about the 3 questions. And then from there, we'll open it up to any dialogues at all that you guys are interested in. Any questions about 3 questions? It's kind of easy, right?
Yeah, you said want to sell your home for the least amount of time. Something with the least amount of hassle. What did I miss?
Most amount of money, least amount of time, least amount of hassle.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to ask.
Yeah. That's what, every customer wants, right? At its core. I want any agent I hire to get me the most amount of money, the fastest, and I want it to be easy for me. That would be the ideal scenario. So when you acknowledge that and you tell them that's my aim too, now they're encouraged that they've connected with the right agent, right? It's almost a little analogous to, have you ever noticed, like, if somebody wants $1 million for their $900,000 house, they're just going to ask enough agents till somebody says, sure, I can get you $1 million. That's
So do you address that?
sure. Yeah. If so we did a training in the fall on my color picture CMA tour process. It's a long name, but it is super effective. And what I do is I play a game. I'll give you guys the 2-minute version here. So when I deliver a CMA, it's not like the one you're talking about, Allison. It's not a big, thick, heavy document. I do that for leads, but not for prospects that I'm meeting with in person. What I bring when we're going to meet, it's what I call a CMA, but it's photos. In fact, I probably have one ready for where. If I look in my drawer for any thick package, this is the color picture CMA package. You can see it's kind of thick, right? The first package is my answer key. So it's got the map, and I'll usually put a star on the map where their house is. And let me turn off my background so I don't have to worry about that. Right. And then there's nothing written on here, but look what is on page 2. There's a lot written on there, right? Because what I want is I know what their house is worth, right? And I can do this without ever seeing their house. Because what I'm going to do, and I'll describe this more eloquently in a second, but I'm basically going to figure out what is the condition of their home and where does it fit on this continuum of comps? And that's its value, right? So I start with my answer sheet, and then I bring with me, in this case, I had 10, but usually 6 to 8 comps. And it's just the photo report, right? So this is one comp, all the photos, right? So this is like 5 or 6, 7 pages of photos. And then I write on it, it says, year built, bed, bath, square feet, and other. So on this one, I wrote 1968, 2 beds, 1 3/4 baths, 915 square feet, no view, parking, remodeled 100%. Right? This is for a condo on Queen Anne Hill in Seattle, which is a nice neighborhood. Right? Here's another one. And it's 80% view, remodeled 100%. And so what happens is I give these to the prospect and I go, all right, Allison, now we're going to talk about the value of your home and we're going to play a game. And I use the word game specifically because I want to invoke in your brain we all as humans have a drive where we like games and we want to win them. We don't like losing games, right? And we have that competitive aspect to all of our personalities. So I say the word game on purpose because the consumer doesn't know they were going to play a game today, right? And I go, hey, Allison, so we're going to play a game and I'm going to show you some of the comparable sales. All right. Your job is going to be to guess what they sold for. And what happens is when we start this game, Allison's hope of getting $1 million for her place is at its peak, right? her desire to win the game is at 0 because she wasn't planning on playing a game. But then she looks at the first house, and you want to strategically pick the first one so that it's superior to hers. So what'll happen is she'll go, if I want $1 million, this one needs to have sold for $1.1 million, right? And you give them to them, and then you write down, okay, she guessed $1.1 million. And then I draw a line, and under the line, I wrote what it actually sold for. Actually, Allison, this one sold for $925. And what happens is her desire to get $1 million just took a hit, right? And her desire to win the game went up. And then she looks at the second one, and she guesses again and gets it wrong, but maybe a little bit closer. And it does this. And over the course of 6 or 7 listings, she's going to start guessing correctly. And she's going to realize her house isn't worth $1 million, right? And then at the end, I take all of these comps and I spread them out in front of her from low on my right-hand side to high on my left-hand side. So for her, it's from left to right. And I go, this is a continuum of condition. Let's pick where your house fits on this continuum. And then they look at the comps and they go, well, mine's nicer than that one, nicer. Well, that one's pretty nice. Okay, it's probably between these two. And you go, all right, that's your value, right? Because that one sold for $875 and that one sold for $900. Therefore, your house is $885 or $890, right? So this psychological game manipulates the consumer. I know that's not a pretty word and we don't want to ever manipulate somebody, but it truly causes their brain to adjust to being realistic.
How about makes them more real? Yeah, it makes them more realistic instead of manipulating.
Yeah, that sounds better. And will you ever have a person that says, I don't care, I want $1 million? Of course. But it's pretty rare. Usually the average person will fall in line and go, you're right, I see.
What do you say to that person? Do you say my magic wand's in the shop?
I go, well, I'd rather disappoint you today than disappoint you 90 days from now.
Perfect.
Or I'll say, or sometimes it's, and I'll say, why not stay? You know, because in the end, and you all probably have somebody like this where they wanted a number, they were immovable off that number, and you landed on, well, it's not worth that today, but it will be eventually. Why don't we just stay in touch? I got a guy right now, he's a doctor, and he swears up and down he's going to get $900 for his house. I'm like, you will in like 3 years. So let's stay in touch, right? He doesn't have an emotional why that's motivating enough, but at some point he will. And I'm good at dripping on and staying connected to people. And so I'll just stay connected to him. So, you know, there is a point, and this is probably a worthwhile conversation. There is a point where I'll take a listing that's overpriced, but only within a certain range, like 2 or 3%. And I'll get them to pre-agree to a price reduction. So we can talk about how you do that, maybe not next week because we've got that figured out, but maybe the following week. Would that be helpful to say?
Oh yeah, yeah,
right.
for sure. Because I just went to the Tom Ferry thing yesterday, and he said that inventory is going to increase this year to pre-pandemic levels.
What was that?
Inventory is going to increase to pre-pandemic levels this year.
You want to know why he's wrong?
Oh yeah, sure.
We haven't talked about this, but people are way underestimating the shortage of inventory. And the reason it's worse than everybody realizes is, do you know how many homes builders build in a typical year?
Not a lot.
Like a 50-year average, it's 2 million homes a year. So it's 20 million homes per decade. Do you know how many homes they built in the decade from 2011 to 2020? 5 million. So we had a 15 million home deficit going into 2021. Then in 2021, they built 500,000 homes. So now we're at a 16.5 million home deficit. Then in 2022, they were on pace to build 1.1 million. And then rates on May 21st of 2022, on that day will live in infamy in my brain, rates bumped 200 basis points and the market shut off like a hose, right? So they ended up not hitting their 1,000,001 number. They only did about 750,000.
When was that? October 2022, you said?
No, May 21st, 2022.
Mm.
I only know that because I had a listing, a $4 million listing. Because remember, 2021 was the white hot market, right? 2022, it was still white hot for the first 4.5 months, and then rates spiked in May. But I had a listing that we put on in March, and the client said, we can't close or move until July. So tell us if we should wait to put it on the market. And I said, well, we can put it on the market and put in the listing that we need possession until July 1st, because their son was graduating from high school and they had already agreed to host the graduation party and they had beautiful property and blah, blah, blah. So that was like an immovable object. And I said, well, we can go on the market in March and ask for that. It's still a white hot market, so there's a very good chance we'll get it. But if we don't, then we can take it off the market and then relist when it's more realistic. Because one thing, you guys probably know this, but I'll say it for the video. Fannie and Freddie conventional financing requires that the buyer take occupancy within 60 days. They sign what's called an occupancy affidavit. And if they don't, that's occupancy fraud. If they have an owner loan and they don't move in within 60 days. So that's the maximum when you're writing contracts. If you have a buyer that's financed, you can't give the seller more than 60 days post possession, right? So I was teaching them through all this. The irony of all this is that the seller, the husband, he was the attorney for the MLS. So he knew 30,000 realtors and he called 3 of us and interviewed 3 of us, and I won the job. And I'm happy to cover that story in another time. But here's what happened with the deal. We go on the market. We tell them what we need. We have an offer review date. So I always list on a Thursday. And if I have an offer review, it'd be on Tuesday or Wednesday. And Sunday, we get an offer. We're listed at 4 million even. Sunday, we get an offer at 4.25 million, $200,000 earnest money, non-refundable, immediately released to the seller. Closing in 60 days, possession in 120 days. So they structured it so it would close May 31st and possession on July 31st. Maybe. Yeah, I guess that was the deadline. Am I doing that right? Yeah. So it was a home run offer, right? So we accepted it. Supposed to close on May 31st. May 27th, I get a phone call because rates spiked 5 days earlier, 6 days earlier. And the agent goes, my clients have to terminate. And I said, well, I can think of 200,000 reasons that they should reconsider. And he laughed and he goes, believe me, I have explained that and tried to talk to them, but they're worried about getting laid off. And I go, worried about? They haven't even been laid off? No. But they're worried they might be? Yeah. And they're willing to walk away from a $200,000 earnest money? And he goes, yeah, about that. Do you think your client would give that back?
Well,
I started laughing. I go, what part of real estate attorney did you not understand? So anyway, we went back on the market Memorial Day weekend, had a new review date, hoping that it was a great house. So you never know, right? Crickets. We had 200 people come through the open houses that weekend, but no offers on the review date. And we ended up selling it for 3.5 million, but he got the extra 200,000 from the first buyer. So really 3.7. Although ironically, when I pointed that out to him, the wife said, that's not how we're doing our math. I'm like,
but it's real. It's
Like,
real math.
I didn't say this, but I was like, I don't care how you're doing your math. It's not about a subjective analysis. You got 200 grand in your bank account.
Yeah, and I got that for you.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
hello, and you didn't have to pay commission on that. So that's even better.
Exactly. So it was just funny, comment to make, because what she was doing is trying to make sure they didn't have to go below 3.5. So that was how I responded to her comment was, I understand 3.5. I will get you 3.5. And we did. So anyway, but that's the wrap up to the shortage of inventory is we haven't had a 2 million unit year yet. So we're closer to 20 million under supply of houses. So as much as I know, like, and respect Mr. Ferry, there's not this pent up, inventory that all of a sudden is going to hit the market. It's going to go up because, like we saw in January of this year, buyers are tired of waiting for rates to go down, right? So they're starting to come out into the marketplace, even though rates are still in the 7s. Now they've gone back down into the 6s. So, we'll see. That's the beautiful thing. We'll end with this comment. You guys are all rock star brokers and you know how to make money in the current market. When you develop a skill to predict the next market and position your businesses to take advantage of that, that's when you become a rock star. And we can talk about those things and, what I believe, where the market's headed and all that anytime you guys want. Just not today because we're out of time. Any questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, thank you all for joining me. I hope you got some value out of it. And thanks for enduring my tech issues. Christine.
Your CMA, where did you pull that out from? From what?
For the photos part of it?
Everything.
So I do a color picture CMA tour. That whole package, this package just comes right out of my MLS. I print the map view so I can show them where the comps are in relation to theirs. I print some of the data. I don't need images in my little scoring package. I also print the public records so that I can show them their house isn't as big as they think it is or whatever. And then the photo gallery report in Matrix, if you have Matrix,
I have Matrix. I just got it.
If I'm delivering an actual substantial, like, drop a phone book on the table type CMA, I use Cloud Agent Suite for that. It does a really nice job. So, like, Allison was asking about KV Core's tool, which
That's what I have.
yeah, which I've not used that one, but it's probably similar, which is fine.
It's weird though. The KV Core, it doesn't say how many bathrooms though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm doing land, so I don't think that's going to matter. But that's a good point.
Allison, I'll send you a text and I'll CC Matt Coleman's
Great.
name. And I'll just say, hey, Matt, would you mind giving Allison some, advice on how to use KB Core's CMA tool?
And then one more thing for Christine is,
Can I have that too? Can you send it to me too? Or
you
no?
can do a 4-way text.
Christine, text me so I can add you to my phone. And then I'll do a 4-way text and I'll say, Matt, can you help both of these ladies?
What
Great.
number?
My number's 206 229
229?
5515.
And then I'm guessing, Ed, you have a recorded CMA class also, maybe that.
Yeah. If you go to my YouTube channel, on YouTube, just look for Ed Laine Realtor and you'll find my channel. There's a playlist called Agent Training that has like 100 videos on it. What I tell people if they need something is go to that playlist, then hit Control F on your keyboard and just search for the word listing, or in this case, search for the word color, and it'll pull you to the video that has the color picture CMA tour process.
No.
But there's also videos on there on how to do CMAs, because I I've done, Allison and I know each other from the REO side of the world, and we've done thousands of BPOs, which is on an appraisal form.
Right.
And I would argue that I'm as good at appraising as an appraiser is, but the average agent isn't, right? So there's videos on there on how I actually do, I separate it into the science of CMAs and the art, right? Because the science is how do you pull and pick the comps? The art is how do you interpret them?
There's so many different ways of doing CMAs. So of course I know how to do it. I just want to see how other people, their way,
I
their
agree.
styles, the different styles.
Then once you pick your style, do one a day for a month or something like that. It's a muscle, and you'll get good at it. All right. So I will connect you all to Matt, and then I'll buy Matt a beer and thank him for being kind and generous.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week when we cover off-market tools for buyers.
Happy weekend. Bye-bye.
Yes. Happy weekend, everybody.
Thank you all.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.